Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Climate Chamber City second webinar, which is looking very much at Scotland's renewable story. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Richard Muir. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure to host this morning's second webinar of engagement that we're having as part of the Climate Chamber City. For those of you that don't know much about the Climate Chamber City, this is an online platform that Glasgow Chamber of Commerce are hosting alongside our colleagues at One Earth. And it's very much a legacy project from COP26, when we hosted the largest international trade mission ever hosted by a British Chamber of Commerce. And the mission then aimed to build international partnerships and aid the delivery of ambitious sustainability and climate targets for our businesses, connecting many overseas businesses with Scottish businesses. And following COP and Scotland's world-leading status in tackling climate crisis, Glasgow Chamber of Commerce has taken the bull by the horns and created the Climate Chamber City. So this is very much a global community that we're very much in the early stages and in the foothills of at the moment, of building a global community of leading businesses who are operating with sustainability in mind. And this seeks to connect like-minded businesses to help them to learn from each other, connect with each other, and trade with each other, very much on impact, and ultimately hoping to unite to tackle climate change within business and corporate life. So it is very much a legacy project from COP. And as part of the platform, we're asking businesses to share best practice, to learn from each other, and to address climate challenge issues and how they're succeeding as businesses, and to access sustainable and circular based content. So as we develop the Climate Chamber City, our partners overseas will be taking hold of content on a monthly basis, and Glasgow Chamber of Commerce have agreed to do the content in September, and today's event takes very much part of that. So we're delighted to welcome two excellent contributors this morning. We've got Bill Ireland, Chief Executive of Logan Energy, and Hazel Gulliver, who's the Director of Engagement from ScottishPower. And then we'll open up for some discussions. So please, if you've got questions, chip in. It's very informal. Our first speaker is Bill Ireland from Logan Energy. Logan Energy design, install, commission, and maintain integrated energy systems across the UK and Europe. They've developed economic models that capture the evolution of hydrogen technology, the cost and subsidies for wind and solar energy production, and the cost of transporting and distributing hydrogen. And I know that Bill has been taking part in Chamber online trade missions recently as well. So without further ado, Bill, can I hand over to you? I know you've got some slides and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks very much for inviting me along. I will hopefully share the screen and hopefully you can see that.
That's perfect. Thanks, Bill.
Excellent. So I will start by running through a sort of very quick agenda, basically about who we are, sort of what we're all doing here, and what some of the issues are, the market needs, and some of the barriers to progressing. So basically a bit about who we are. We started off in '95 in the US, installing sort of fuel cells running off fossil fuels. And then in 2005 we were set up in the UK, in Scotland, and we carried on sort of installing distributed generation using fuel cells running off fossil fuels. About 10-12 years ago decided that actually distributed generation was not the right thing to do, running off fossil fuels, because actually you'd end up increasing the amount of CO2 emissions if you didn't capture the carbon from it. Because of the reduction in, or the increase in, renewable energies going onto the electricity grid. One of the big advantages was we were displacing grid electricity, which had a high carbon content. And so we looked very much to renewable energy and integrating renewable energy with hydrogen in fuel cells as well as electrolysis, and basically providing sort of energy solutions based around hydrogen. From there, we basically got involved with the Levermouth Community Energy Project, which I'll explain a wee bit more about later on. And then we've got into hydrogen refueling, vehicles, vehicle conversion, and energy balancing. We've got a joint venture in China We have a company in the Netherlands, and we're working with a lot of OEMs and developers. Where we sit is very much around optimizing the complete system. One of the issues we come across is that people have selected various components within this diagram, and we've already lost the opportunity to optimize it. So because we know the whole process, the efficiencies, how things operate, we can do it far more economically and efficiently by knowing the whole process. We don't deploy renewable electricity generation at the moment. What we do is look at the generation, size it to deal with various sort of energy requirements, and I'll explain one of those in a bit. So we look at smart grid management, looking at where the electricity is coming from, look at what the requirements are for the projects, and whether it's carbon or cost saving or both, combination of the two, reliability, etc. Size electrolyzers, we don't manufacture them. We sort out the compression and storage, and then depending on the use, that depends on what you want to do with the compression side of things, whether you use it immediately for a chemical process or whether you're storing it for energy, or whether you're putting it into vehicles, which is storing energy. And those can be trains, trucks, marine vessels, etc. And basically we do the whole of it, or we do parts of it, but obviously the optimization, if we do all of it, then we actually have the opportunity to optimize that. This is pretty much where we sit. The blue bits are the bits we don't do, which is basically electrolysis and compression, and cooling, which is basically chillers. What we do is we put all of those together and integrate it. We've developed some of our own software and hardware to integrate it better. The reason for that is out of necessity, because it doesn't exist or hasn't existed in the past. Our philosophy is very much around being technology and supplier agnostic, about having a good track record in project delivery, which is key at the moment. There seem to be a lot of projects that aren't actually delivering. And we pride ourselves on delivering those. We're very customer focused in the fact that we haven't actually delivered what the customer has issued at a tender, because quite often that's not necessarily what they need to fulfill their requirements. So we've worked with them after winning the tender to actually supply what they really need. We've brought a lot of this in-house. A lot of people have said there's energy transition and we need to reskill. Part of the problem with that is those skills aren't necessarily transferable. A lot of them are, but around hydrogen, there are very specific things that you need to know. And so what we've done is we've had to retrain some people, but a lot of our workforce is actually quite young and actually comes straight into the hydrogen sector. Our know-how around energy systems allows us to reduce the capital cost and the operating costs by intelligently combining various components of it. And one of the key things is we also do the operating and maintenance of it, which again is lacking in the supply chain. And this is just some examples of sort of actually quite old photos of what we do. So we do everything from control panels to valve panels to designing specific systems. And these are some of our customers, just sort of everything from the late Queen all the way through to OEMs in the UK and abroad. So what are we doing here? I think this is a brilliant but horrifying graphic that NASA produced. This is around, it goes from about 1900 and the average temperature and the deviation from average over the years, and sort of demonstrates sort of where we are. This is basically what the majority of the people at Logan are about, is about dealing with this increase in climate change. And I think we've seen more of it in Japan over the last day or two. So where's the energy coming from at the minute? Looking on the left here, this is gas production, just an example. I haven't looked at oil, but looking at gas and sort of the main areas, we know the issues around some of the production in some of these areas, and then LNG shipping around the world. and then potentially the new world energy powers. And I sort of joke at the point here about if you haven't bought your square kilometre of the Sahara Desert yet for producing solar electricity, then you should do. In fact, there are various companies that are actually buying up areas or agreements on deploying renewable electricity generation around the world. Again, prices come down. It's about 160 a litre for fuel at the minute for vehicles. If you actually look at the costs of crude, you have massive fluctuations. This was actually to March, but actually it's obviously gone much higher than this. And providing economic security, stability. So if you've got security of supply, you've got security of cost, then you have sort of security of the economy in your area, particular region. Looking at UK red diesel prices, which is a better indication of sort of what the prices are, because it doesn't include tax. You've got a massive increase here, and this is in fact 1 month. This goes back to March, so I need to update these, but it's still very high, and this is being felt very much in the agricultural field, but also haulage, etc., which is why sort of our inflation is so high. Looking at the opportunities, we've basically got something from Bloomberg New Energy Finance saying that green hydrogen is now cheaper than grey hydrogen, which I think is still the case, even with the slight drop in price, and it will just continue. So what are the issues? This is looking back over a 4-year period in the UK. With our energy demand. The blue is the gas demand, and basically we use natural gas as a massive energy store for our winter heating, and as well as our electricity production. And then this is the fuel running through here. So the red is our electricity consumption, blue load winter, and so we need to deal with this somehow or another. Renewables, looking at it on a monthly basis, looks like sort of the PV actually makes up for the drop in wind in the summer. When you look at it from a daily basis, looks a bit more tricky to balance. You then look at it, this is a 2-month period in Denmark, UK and Germany of wind generation, and then you look at the grid load, that's a 7-day period in the UK while we're trying to balance. Again, looking at the current usage and the carbon content, this is basically from a great little app called Electricity Maps, just showing where electricity, the carbon intensity of electricity for various regions. And when you look at the US, it's even more horrific than this. And again, we can't forget heat. We talked about energy, but actually most people are talking about electricity. What we're looking at is very much heat and space heating and electricity usage, as well as industrial usage. You can see over here the process elements of it, Germany being very high with doing a lot of manufacturing. Looking at renewables, sustainability and time, it's very much about time. So we're looking at batteries for a few minutes of flight for a toy helicopter to a day of storage for your phone, very low usage. Looking at daily storage with solar and batteries, pumped hydro, annual, so you've got your and multi-annual, you've basically got your short rotation coppice. In fact, this is elephant grass, but that's annual, and then you've got your short rotation coppice here, which is a 3-year cycle. And then looking at millennia, and you've basically got actually fossil fuels is actually a renewable energy. It's just the time scale we don't like. Because it's millions and millions of years, because actually all the oil and gas has actually come from organic matter, but we can't generate it, or it isn't being generated as quickly as we're using it. European studies have basically put into various ideas here on which particular method of storing energy. You've got compressed batteries here down at low level, short term, compressed air, pumped hydro, hydrogen, and synthetic natural gas here. So hydrogen playing a big play around renewables. So what are we doing about it? I've shown you this before. This is actually delivering it. This was done in the Levermouth project back in 2014. We started it, had it up and running in 2016 in Methil in Fife, where we actually had 750 kilowatt wind turbines, some photovoltaic electricity generation, a microgrid, seven private wires, and providing electricity directly from renewables to the buildings. When there was insufficient, we generated electricity from stored hydrogen back through a fuel cell. And we also provided hydrogen for vehicle refueling for a fleet of 17 vehicles, as well as a small 5 kilowatt boiler to provide space heating for those buildings. That was a demonstration project. We learned shed loads from it. We wouldn't be the company we are today without doing that project. That's the installation going in of the electrolyzer here, 100 kilowatt fuel cell, 30 bar storage in these big bullets here. That's the electrolyzer fitting into an existing building. This is the two refuelers going in, basically plug and play. It's our first foray into hydrogen refueling. That's our Mark 1 version, and also for refueling storage to be pushed around offsite to other sites to provide fuel for other sites. Coming up to sort of more recent projects, this is an interesting one around Ardbicke Distillery, where they want to go zero carbon, zero emission. They produce all their grain, peas and potatoes on the land. They've got their own borehole. What they don't have is their own energy. And we've basically sized the wind and solar, managing that, size the electrolyzer to optimize it again storage, to basically take sort of intermittent electrical production over here to fuel and power basically the distillery for their regular batch production of their products. 85% is thermal, about 15% electricity direct usage, and so basically offsetting their fuel oil usage. This is just looking at the hydrogen storage levels over the year on an hourly basis. Here you can obviously see we've got it fully stored, but then here you've got a period where we drop away wind production, but we're still using the hydrogen for generating steam. Then in summer again here, drop in wind, and you actually look at sort of excess hydrogen generation here, so we can actually export it and provide a revenue. And then this is actually the truck movements, and then here in summer you're importing. So basically we got to 97% before it became investing too much into the capital outlay for little return, basically around lack of wind and not enough sun in the summer period. So here we would rely on zero carbon fuels being imported. What the market needs is basically quick deployment. We pre-commission stuff, put it on the back of a lorry, plonk it on the ground, and within a few days it's up and running. This is a deployment that was done in Belfast that's working for TransLink for their hydrogen fuel cell buses. This is the second phase of that, where they've got 25 buses, and we're doing 20 buses back-to-back filling overnight to deal with their existing timetable and schedule. Again, here it's actually 3 different projects that we've won with Anglia, with a wind farm 50 miles north of Belfast, providing an electrolyzer, then compressing it, putting it into trucks. Those trucks are then, or trailers, sorry, we provided the trailers, and those are driven to Belfast, where they connect up to a new refueler that's going in to do their fleet. But that'll be the largest refueler in Europe. That should be deployed in the next week. That's currently just going through final commissioning at the minute, back at our facility in Wallingford, just outside Edinburgh. This is a unit that we deployed out to Tenerife, basically taking seawater and producing hydrogen for vehicles to try and decarbonise the emissions and reduce their reliability on fossil fuels. Again, flexibility, a lot of demonstration projects going on, but also commissioning. We're dealing with Alexander Dennis and helping them to actually do their first fill of hydrogen, degassing, purification of the contents of the tanks. All has to be done under various conditions. But this is a mobile refueler that we can deploy and have deployed to a number of locations in the 6 months that we've actually produced it. Funnily enough, this is actually using one of the compressors from the Leafmouth project, which is being decommissioned. So actually repurposed some of that equipment, and we've put it into this trailer to provide a mobile refueler. Again, dealing with a Dutch barge, where we're getting maritime approval from Lloyd's to basically move a barge up and down the Dutch canals, shipping salt from the chlor-alkali plants, producing hydrogen as a byproduct that's going into the vessel. That's going up and down, deploying the salt, and then returning and refilling with hydrogen, which is a byproduct from the chlor-alkali operation. Also developing prototypes. This is an electric prototype deployed in the hydrogen version we're just developing at the moment with the company in Aberdeen. And then also vehicle conversions. Again, there's a lack of supply of those. So in Tenerife, no one would supply vehicles to Tenerife because of the support they would have to give them. So we basically converted vehicles ourselves, put a fuel cell and a hydrogen storage on the roof and connected it into the electric systems. There's an existing electric vehicle that we basically added a fuel cell range extender to it. And then also you've got weights and measures dealing with people like National Engineering Laboratory to providing facilities in the back of vehicles to actually go to hydrogen refueling stations to check that they are delivering what they're saying they're delivering, and checking that they're doing it in accordance with sort of the requirements for refueling. So a wide variety of what we're doing. Unfortunately, the reality is the electrolyzer we deployed at Leafmouth, $1 million worth, deployed in 2016, and Hydrogenics, as they were then, Cummins bought them, have basically said, yeah, it's scrap, we're not supporting it anymore. So we're dealing with a developing industry with some manufacturers who aren't necessarily interested in supporting existing equipment that they've deployed. We've got 2 French electrolyzers, they're 2 years late in being deployed. Some projects that are being touted as sort of wonderful projects. The reality is they haven't actually produced hydrogen for several years. And what we need to do is deal with the reality of it and actually tell it how it is, and work within our abilities and sort of capacities. Over engineering, again, engineers love to design things that are perfect, but actually we can't afford that necessarily to deploy it. We've got to compromise in some areas, or use our intelligence to actually work around it. There was a requirement for vehicles to fill in the same period of time that a car would fill petrol. If we had that same attitude to electric vehicles, no one would be driving electric vehicles. So we have to actually be more flexible. What we've done here is we've developed a system whereby you don't need to cool the hydrogen to -40. And so we can save on capex and opex, but still achieve the same fill rates. So again, it's looking at sort of how you do it. And similarly, fuel cells sort of aren't necessarily working as well as we're being told they are. So some of the top tips is learn from the demonstrators, don't do more demonstrators. We've done loads and loads of demonstrators. We need to do the commercial deployment now. That's where it becomes economically viable rather than as a demonstrator. We need to work within our competencies, which is very important, not try and say, yes, we can do everything. A lot of organisations in the existing energy markets are saying, yes, we can do it. It's just the same as everything else we've done. Unfortunately, it's not. Hydrogen isn't. Collaboration is what we need, working together. I've been saying this for years, but everybody wants to say, this is mine, grab it, and we want to take over the world type thing. And what we actually need to do is all work together. There is so much that we need to do, and work together is what we need to do. And that's the only way we're going to achieve it. Be realistic. I think we've seen probably recently some hydrogen technology companies that have decided to depart or sort of go separate ways with their chief execs, and their share prices has dropped sort of to 20% of what it was a year ago. If we're not careful, we'll hit a .com area around the hydrogen sector as well. One of the things we focus on is deliver. Not delivering is not a good way of starting, or not starting, but growing an industry. And the other one is hydrogen's not the answer, it's part of it. I've been saying that for years as well. Stop trying to put a square peg in a round hole, because it's not the answer for everything. And that hopefully is the end of mine. So thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bill. My goodness, you packed a load into that 15 minutes or so. And what I'm going to do is, if it's okay, we'll maybe save questions for the end so we can let Hazel make her contribution just now. But I would just say to folks on the webinar today, if you've got any questions, you can either store them up and we can take you live at the end, or if you want to put your questions in the chat box, feel free to do that now. One of the things I definitely picked up there, Bill, was the collaboration, not world domination at the end, and that really rings for us at the Chamber, and that's what the Climate Chamber City is all about, and that's why we're all here this morning. We're all trying to collaborate and forge new relationships and trade with each other. But you covered off so much great ground there, and I'm fascinated about the Leavenmouth Community Energy Project. Really interested in the Arbeke distillery. We know Ian Sterling pretty well. Ian's taken part in at least 2 of our trade missions. In fact, I'm surprised he's not on the call this morning. He just needs to provide some of his gin products, really, to be honest. But yeah, great guy, Ian. And also you talked about bus projects as well, which was great. And I know we've got meetings later this week in the Chamber talking about bus projects as well. So many things that cut across. So thank you for that. That was fascinating. I'm going to turn to Hazel now. So Hazel is Director of Engagement with ScottishPower and a long-time friend of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. Hazel leads internal and external stakeholder engagement at the corporate level at ScottishPower, and she works across all issues of interest in ScottishPower's constituent businesses, including retail, renewables and energy networks, while managing a pool of senior corporate affairs managers focusing on media, government affairs, policy, digital and events. There's a lot in there, Hazel, isn't there? Also, Hazel works closely with colleagues at the parent company on issues of global concern, primarily climate change and meeting the net zero challenges. So Hazel, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Wow, that doesn't sound like me, but anyway, I'm sure it is. No, I'm just kidding. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to everyone today. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of ScottishPower as a company, where we are today, where we've come from, and some of the key issues that we're facing. As Richard mentioned, part of my role as Director of Engagement is really engaging with stakeholders, primarily governments in both the UK and Scottish Government level and the regulator, about some of the issues that are of concern to us at the moment, and as Richard said, across the whole of the business that we work in. So ScottishPower, it's safe to say, has come a long way from the days where we used to have loads of shops where people like to go and pay their electricity bills and buy appliances. It's safe to say that's not where we are today, and it's a different world we live in. But I mean, it would be remiss of me not to mention that we wouldn't be where we were today without the support of our parent company. So just a few quick words on the Iberdrola Group. Iberdrola is one of the biggest utilities in the world, and took over, well, ScottishPower in 2007. And since that time, that's really when we started our journey into renewables. We'd already dabbled a bit in renewables. We had a few projects, we had a bit of a pipeline, but it really was Iberdrola's, not just the capital investment, but the expertise, the skills, the access to the supply chain, and the global renewables management team that we then could access with all of that expertise that helped us get underway with our energy journey. I'll just pick out a few things there. I mean, you can see right in the middle, 400,000 people work for Iberdrola. That's a lot. We'll come to ScottishPower in a minute. You see at the top, there's 58,320 megawatts of total installed capacity. That actually is going to be more by the end of this year. So in the next slide, there's a higher figure. Once we take account of what's going to be up and running by the end of this year, it's over 59 gigawatts. There's 36.1 million consumers. There's 1 million kilometers of power lines. So Iberdrola really does work across the whole value chain, from networks to retail to generation. So just a bit of a context there. And as you can see at the bottom there, £34 billion investment plan over the current 4-year period. So it's a big player. So just a couple more words on Iberdrola. As I said, there's over 59 gigawatts of capacity now. Iberdrola is really the biggest wind developer in Europe, Spain, the UK, and it's third in the US now. And we're also branching out into offshore in the US as well. So that's just a bit of context. ScottishPower, as a renewable leader in the UK now, has a lot to thank Iberdrola for. And as Richard mentioned in the introduction there, part of my job is engaging with our international colleagues in Spain and the teams there in terms of wider international climate change issues. I'll come back to that a bit at the end. But yeah, so that's where we've come from. And just a little bit more context. We can see the demand, electricity demand growth in the UK. And I've just sort of highlighted at the bottom there, offshore, onshore, solar and battery increasing from 42 gigawatts to 112 gigawatts in 2030, 261 gigawatts in 2050. That's a lot of electricity. And the reason I wanted to highlight that, I mean, our chief executive, Keith Anderson, once said, we need to electrify the hell out of everything. And that is absolutely where we are, but it's electrify the hell out of everything using renewable technology. And basically, what we need to do is get those renewables deployed and basically decouple the price of electricity from gas over the longer term. We can maybe come back to the conversation about prices that we're currently facing at the moment. We were very fortunate that the new Prime Minister stood up in the House of Commons on the 8th of September and made an announcement about the energy price guarantee. But then, of course, events took a bit of a dramatic turn and we've had a bit of a pause on that. But I'm happy to come back to that and talk about that angle if anybody has questions or if anyone is interested a bit later on. As I said, this slide was just to show electricity demand, huge increase. And maybe just to comment on the purple one on the graph there is hydrogen production, almost nothing at the moment. And well, it's safe to say over a third by 2050. So I shall just leave that thought there, maybe reflecting about the presentation we've just had. So another bit of just quick bit of context, UK government published the energy strategy back in, it was the 7th of April. Now, there are parts of this which are not for ScottishPower, but the turbocharging offshore wind, hugely significant from our perspective, and that 50 gigawatts target is absolutely massive. Planning reforms is something that we talk a lot about. We're not going to get where we need to get to unless we do something about planning. And then the 4 key elements at the bottom there for all things ScottishPower is very actively involved in: onshore wind, solar, hydrogen and heat pumps. I'll come back to all of that. So ScottishPower, finally we get to this. What are we actually involved in? You can see on the left there, it's the whole range of renewable technologies from onshore and offshore wind to solar and battery storage. There's a huge networks business as well operating behind all this. So the 2 dark green areas you can see there is where ScottishPower has a electricity transmission distribution networks, sort of North Wales and northwest of England, and the sort of south of Scotland, sort of just below Stirling kind of area. That's all ScottishPower Energy Networks. It's still remain the only integrated energy firm in the UK covering the whole supply chain, the whole value chain, sorry, from generation to supply to customers. And this, as you can see, there are huge plans for investment in the UK. That's, I mentioned that 34 billion Iberdrola number before, 10 billion in the UK till 2025. It's obviously quite a significant proportion of that. Iberdrola has always maintained that the UK is a sort of safe place to invest with strong and stable regulatory structures that reward investment. So they're always very keen to invest in the UK. We've got over 5 million retail customers and 5,600 employees. ScottishPower is a big company in the UK, but I will come to the next slide. Has a huge impact in terms of the social impact in the UK. You can see there. The bottom one I'll pick out is just like £1.6 billion of contracts awarded in 2021. That's quite a lot for one company, and that's across the whole different business range. But the one thing I wanted to highlight on this slide really is on the bottom left there, some of the things we do with our working with communities and that we're really proud of. So the ScottishPower Foundation has awarded so far over £10 million to charitable organisations. We have the Green Economy Fund, which is run through our networks business. Again, that's financing things like electric minibuses or food transport in rural communities and all sorts of local community projects to the tune of £20 million so far. The Community Benefit Fund, that is connected to our onshore wind development, and offshore it's £50 million roundabout so far. And we have a partnership with Cancer Research UK where we've raised over £35 million. So as well as the direct wealth and employment impacts, the community impacts are absolutely huge from our perspective, and something we're really, really proud of. So what's our strategy? In 2016, we closed our last coal-fired power station at Logan. It's quite a big site in Scotland. And since the beginning of 2018, we have generated only renewable electricity. We're 100% green renewables generator. That's a strategy that Iberdrola sort of set out on. It's over 20 years ago now, that move towards renewables. And like I said, we've benefited from all of those, their expertise in taking that forward in the UK market. What our focus is: wind energy, smart grids, and I've said the cleaner electric future. That involves transport and heat, and a number of other kind of new technologies that we're seeing, which I'll come to again in a minute. Scottish Power has a number of different business units. Energy networks, I mentioned before. I mean, you can't underestimate how important the networks business, the kind of unseen part of what we do. We would not be able to get all the renewables we need to where it needs to go without the energy networks business. It's as well as the huge transmission lines that we have going across the country. It's the distribution as well. People are becoming more active energy users, energy consumers or prosumers. We sort of hear them talking about at the EU level, generating their own energy and even storing their own energy and sending it back to the grid as well. So we need to adapt to make sure we have the infrastructure that's fit for that purpose. I just need to move myself off. I'm blocking my, there we go. So it's kind of written in small writing there, that integration of renewables, including onshore works for higher offshore wind ambition. I'll come back to ScotWind in a wee minute, but there is no way we'll be able to deliver the ambition. I said in the energy strategy slide a few slides ago about the 50 gigawatt ambition from the UK government. There's just no way that's going to be delivered without the electricity network to support it and to transmit that around the country. And I touched on planning a bit. That's it, that the planning processes in the different parts of the UK are absolutely fundamental in terms of delivering what we need in time. And there's an issue as well we face around the regulatory process and allowing us to make that investment ahead of time. We call it anticipatory investment. We know that the demand for electric cars and electric heating is coming, so we need to be able to invest in advance of it being there. It's a classic chicken and egg scenario, but we need to be able to make the investment now. I've just mentioned there's digitalization is obviously becoming a huge issue, and the DSO model, which is moving, as I mentioned before, to have a much more active role for consumers in their own energy production and supply and demand. So things are changing, and apart from anything else, there's a massive increase in demand needs to be accommodated within the system. Moving to our renewables business now, you can see now we've got more than 3 gigawatts of capacity for onshore and offshore wind farms. And in the UK, the process, the sort of future development of these sites is through a contracts for difference auction. That's sort of the mechanism that the UK is now using to sort of develop projects going forward. And ScottishPower was one of the biggest, well, not one of the biggest winner in the latest contracts for different auction round. We won 15 projects onshore and 1 offshore. So in addition to our already more than 3 gigawatts of capacity, we've got a lot more to come. And you can see there our total onshore pipeline of more than 6.5 gigawatts, which is absolutely huge. And a total offshore pipeline of 10 gigawatts. I'll come back to ScotWind in a wee second, which is huge. You can see here, there's a bit of a breakdown of our different technologies. 60% offshore, 23% onshore. Solar in the UK, believe it or not, is becoming more and more prevalent. Hard to believe on a grey day like this in central Scotland. But the other thing about this is what we're doing is we've got a huge wind farm at Whiteley, just outside Glasgow, and that's one of the sort of starting points for our what we're calling hybrid energy parks. So at Whiteley, it's not just a wind farm anyway. It's a huge nature reserve and park, and it won a green flag for a sort of a site for people to go and visit. And it's a huge community operation as well, but we're also building solar and battery storage and developing green hydrogen from Whiteley. So it's what we're trying to do now is take what we have and the grid connections that we have and absolutely maximise those. And we saw in the previous presentation a bit about the sort of solar and wind balancing each other out at different times of the year. It's about making the most of those connections that we've already got to absolutely make the most of all the technology. I mentioned ScotWind. From a very local perspective, we were the most successful bidder. ScottishPower Renewables was the biggest winner in the ScotWind auction round. And one of the most important parts about this is that 2 of the projects we will be developing in partnership with Shell, and those will be floating offshore wind farms, which is a relatively new technology. And this is, I'll come back to the just transition as well. It's really a story of just transition in action. We all talk about the need for an energy transition and the need to move away from oil and gas to more renewable, sustainable technologies. So our partnership with Shell is about absolutely just transition in action, using the expertise that colleagues in Shell have in the offshore environment and the expertise that we have in renewables to develop a total of 5 gigawatts of projects floating off the coast of Scotland. So very exciting future development there. East Anglia 1, I've just mentioned that because the scale of it is absolutely huge. It's the first of East Anglia Hub projects, and you can see there it'll power 600,000 homes every year, 3,000 jobs, and completed construction in 2020. But now we have other East Anglia projects which have been successful in the recent CFD auction round. Our project East Anglia 3 will be another 1,400 megawatts of offshore capacity. So this is a huge development for ScottishPower. You can see it's the first of our 4. There'll be 4 projects in total. Interesting point there about, look at the price there, £119 a megawatt hour for the first round 3 project. Offshore wind has come down to sort of £50–60 a megawatt hour. It's considerably cheaper than it was when we started building these. So there's the case for offshore wind is just growing day by day in terms of what you can get for your money these days. A retail business, as well as a classic electricity gas supply business. So we can see there we've got 22% of customers in Scotland, but 78% are actually in England and Wales, believe it or not. But we've delivered smart meters to those customers, over 2 million so far. 77% of customers actually operate online, and we've been really proud to be ranked #1 by Uswitch for online services recently. So that was quite an achievement. Difficult times for the retail business, though, I'm not going to lie. It's very, very tough times at the moment. And as I said before, I'm happy to answer any questions about that. That's something we're talking to the government about on pretty much a daily basis, and have been since April, when we were at the Bays Select Committee and the Scottish Parliament's Net Zero Committee, trying to make the case for a significant amount of action to be taken in order to help customers with their bills, because they're just not going to be able to cope. Really disappointing that it took until the 8th of September for something to be done about this. I don't want to be political, but it's not that we didn't say quite a long time ago that there was going to be a desperate situation. So let's see what happens in the coming days. That's something we're going to be very closely involved in with government in terms of ensuring not just consumers was our first concern, but small businesses, how they're going to cope with the situation with energy prices going forward. The retail business is not just about supplying gas and electricity. We're developing a number of technologies for our customers, and these sort of ranging from electric vehicles to heat pumps to solar, and just generally trying to help people to transition to that net zero living. We did a study recently actually with WWF, which highlighted the benefits for within each sort of home in terms of potential increase in your house price with the different technologies you could add, and just really trying to encourage people, those people there's different markets. There are people who are out there and are really willing to take the steps to decarbonise their home and install these technologies. And we need those people to take that action in order to kickstart the market, get those suppliers up and running and create demand. So that's what we're trying to focus on doing at that end of the market. That's just a quick slide about the potential for the growth across all of these areas, because we know that smart mobility is coming. We know that solar panels are beneficial. We know that heat pumps will replace gas boilers. So yeah, there's huge opportunities here. Hydrogen, I won't say too much about that. I think we've already covered that, but ScottishPower is very keen in developing green hydrogen projects for those areas where it's not so easy to decarbonise using renewable electricity. We heard a bit about whiskey. We also have a project in the Cromarty Firth working with the distilleries up there in terms of green hydrogen development. So this is it's a new area for ScottishPower, but again, Iberdrola has been active in that sector in Spain. We're learning a lot from them, and we're building a lot of projects in the UK off the back of that. So it's a very exciting new development for us. So this is kind of a bit more touching on my role directly rather than the different business operations. It's about sort of discussing with government and just keeping that drumbeat of this is what we need, this is what needs to happen in order for us to deliver everything we need. Some of these things I've mentioned before, we need to speed up planning, we need to speed up renewables deployment, we need to the bottom one there, prioritise commercialisation of low carbon hydrogen, something we heard earlier as well. But we also need to think about our renewables projects that we already have. I've mentioned repowering there, because we've got a number of our projects. We've got lots of onshore wind in particular that will be coming to its end of its life relatively soon, and we need to figure out whether we're going to repower or extend the life of those wind farms, and how we can do that, and how we can get through the planning processes in time and or an appropriate speed in order to be able to do that. So these are the kind of things that basically we're talking to our stakeholders about on a daily basis. And ironically, we published that document on the day where in July, when the UK government had a bit of a meltdown. So we're still continuing to talk about these things, but we're expecting our new Prime Minister and our new team to well, I don't know, it's difficult to know whether they're going to stick with the things in the energy strategy. We've heard some things that we're not particularly in favour of coming out of the new government so far, in terms of trying to get us to that energy security that we need in the UK. We don't think oil and gas is the answer. We don't think fracking is the answer. We think more renewables and quicker, and decoupling that electricity and gas price. Those are the answers, and we need to just get on with that, quite frankly. Just transition, I mentioned before. So at COP26 last year, we launched our Just Transition strategy, and we've spent the last year reviewing that to make sure that everything we do at ScottishPower is through a lens of just transition. It's about all of our colleagues just thinking about everything we do, embedding the need for a just transition into all our actions. I mean, we've got those 4 principles there about being purposeful, working with communities, being fair, and sharing our expertise. And it's just about thinking about those things in everything we do, and encouraging everybody within the company to think in that way. The Scottish Government's working on its own government just transition strategy that'll be out soon as part of its energy strategy. We're working closely with them on it. So this is just something that we're hearing more and more about, and we just need to make sure that we're taking into consideration. One last slide about international climate change challenges. Iberdrola, our parent company, has been very, very active in the COP process for many years. They have a partnership with the UNFCCC, and for example, in their New York Climate Week this week, involved in a number of activities. And so in COP25 was in Madrid. So Iberdrola was obviously based in Madrid and was one of the partners of that COP. So when we found out that COP26 was coming to Glasgow, we felt like we'd won a watch, and there was absolutely no, we would not be involved as a partner. We're still involved in that partnership with the UK government until November this year, and we're actively involved in a number of business initiatives like the COP26 Business Leaders Group. There's a COP26 Business Leaders Forum, and we organise a number of events during COP26 at the bottom there. And I just thought I'd take this opportunity to gratuitously put the picture of me with our new king there, which I have to thank the colleagues at Glasgow Chamber for, at the event that we had in the Kelvin Grove in Glasgow during COP26. We do a bike ride as part of the COP process as well, just to highlight the climate change agenda. And there's a couple of other pictures there. We did some phone boxes at the COP venue. These were for recharging your mobile phone. There was never any empty. So that was an absolutely brilliant gimmick. And then we had some advertising about sort of time to take action on climate change. I think that is everything. Yep. So I will finish there, and I'm happy to take any questions on any of this. I realize it's a quick canter through all of that, but if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm happy to answer.
A brilliant and quick canter through, I would say, Hazel. Thank you so much. There was, again, so much in that, and I love the way you finished that with the picture of you with the king. That was excellent. Yes. I was somewhere at the very back of the room and didn't get anywhere near him. So there you go. You did really well that day.
Do you know, everybody always says as well that the best thing about that photo is the faces of the three men in the background.
Yes, noted. It's a small picture, but you can just about see it.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent. And actually, that's a really nice way to finish as well, because I'm going to say a few words at the end about COP27, which is in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, and I'll touch on that just at the end. But I'd really like to thank you for that contribution. And again, you covered so much ground in there. Fascinating to hear about the just transition strategy, which is great to see as a kind of legacy of COP26 as well, and hearing more about the ScotWind projects and the opportunities around those floating offshore wind farms, fascinating as well. And knowing that you're 100% green renewables, which is great. And it's amazing to have companies like ScottishPower on our patch in Glasgow. And as you know, we're so proud and pleased to work so closely with you. And in fact, we have an event, which I might as well shamelessly plug right now, but we have an event with a regular leader series, our Glasgow Talk series, with Keith Anderson, the Chief Executive of ScottishPower, on Thursday, the 29th of September, between 8 and 10 in the morning, at 200 St Vincent Street in the centre of Glasgow. It's an in-person only event, I'm afraid, for those who are based overseas, but we're delighted to be welcoming Keith that morning, and I'm sure you'll be telling us more about the strategy and also about what you touched on there as well, Hazel, around the cost of doing business crisis and some of the challenges facing businesses around energy costs. So I'd like to open it up at this point for questions. So feel free, if you would like to raise your hand or put something in the chat. We don't want to let our speakers off completely this morning in terms of questions. I might just do a little icebreaker in terms of Hazel and Bill. Just, I mean, if you've got any tips, I guess, for the guys on the call this morning. I mean, the Climate Chamber City online platform, as I said before, is all about the companies continuing to kind of network with each other and to connect with each other, to learn from each other, which is the purpose of this morning's webinar, but ultimately to trade with each other in a sustainable and ethical way. So would you have any tips in terms of collaborations? I mean, I know Bill touched on some of the work he's doing with RBKey, and it's great to see companies working and trading with each other. But in terms of international aspirations, any thoughts in terms of how smaller businesses reach out, take advantages of international opportunities?
I'll have a go. It's very hard for small businesses. We're an SME, but we're probably world leaders in what we do. There's no one around that know all around the whole supply chain and doing the energy management side of things. There are an awful lot of consultants out there that are energy consultants and in theory say they know. I think it's a matter of doing due diligence and searching for the right businesses to work with. We're looking to partner with. We recognise that we're not an Iberdrola. We're not going to throw loads of money at things to set up somewhere or another. We need to partner with people to understand the local economies and the business cases, and that's very much what we're around, looking at what the customer needs at the end of the day. So, for example, when we were deploying fuel cells running off fossil fuels, one of the main advantages was saving carbon emissions. Well, you go to France and 86% of their electricity is generated from nuclear, so the carbon content of their electricity is very low anyway. So you need that local knowledge, and we're up for basically partnering with people all over the world. And how you actually find that is tricky. Is working through chambers of commerce, using SDI, and DTI and going on trade missions and trying to find those people that will support you in those regions.
Thanks,
yeah,
Bill.
maybe I can just echo that with the sort of the other perspective from the large company, and my advice would be absolutely to connect and collaborate through organisations like the Chamber. And from my perspective, as well as through the Chamber and the different initiatives that you guys organise, I'm also involved in the CBI Scotland, Business in the Community, and we set up our own initiative as part of COP called the Scottish Business Climate Collaboration, which is supported by the Scottish Government. And a lot of these processes involve mentoring schemes where we will work with our supply chain companies and smaller SMEs in order to help them understand how to work with a big company and how to sort of move along that journey to net zero at the same time. So it's sort of recognising that we have a role and a responsibility to play with our own supply chain and the companies that we work with in order to support that development as well. So, I mean, that's 4 different organisations off the tip of my tongue that we collaborate with closely, and we have SME mentoring schemes through. So I would just absolutely say use that network. And it's the point that Bill made about collaboration. It's not, nobody's going to do that. We can't do this on our own. We can't do this without the small companies to support us, and that local knowledge and the community engagement that I mentioned on one of the slides as well. So it works both ways. Great.
No, thanks, Hazel. I can't see any questions. Hazel, are you able just to take your presentation down? Is that?
Oh, sorry.
Is that okay? Just so I can see if there's any raised. I'm not seeing any raised hands in terms of other questions.
I'm still sharing my screen.
That'd be great. Thank you. And I know that you did touch on the kind of cost of doing business crisis, Hazel. Yeah. Is there anything else you would want to say? I mean, we've obviously got some attendees this morning who are not based in Scotland, and we obviously saw Keith. Thank you. We obviously saw Keith's discussions with senior politicians a few weeks ago. Would you like to just say a little bit more about that for some of the guys on the call that might not know too much about it?
And maybe just backtrack a wee bit to back in April this year, where we were doing some thinking and we were looking at the numbers and the projections for the price cap and the values that we were expecting to see for the price cap for October. And it became immediately clear that this was a value that not just the vulnerable households, but quite a significant number of sort of middle earners were going to start to struggle with their bills, if we were going to see the values under the price cap. The price cap is another matter that we'll maybe have a conversation about another time. We've been trying to discuss with Ofgem, our regulator, for a number of years, that the price cap is not cost reflective or an appropriate way for us to manage manage consumers' bills. So we've been trying to have a conversation about how we reform and adapt and make it more flexible in order for suppliers to cover the costs that they're facing through electricity and gas supply. I mean, you can see that multiple suppliers in the UK have left the market because of how difficult it is. There are many still left, but it's a gradual process of as time goes on, how many suppliers will we still have in the market. So effectively, once we figured out that this price cap was going to be at a value that people couldn't afford, we tried to come up with suggestions. As part of our role is to sort of, as I mentioned on my the need for speed slide there, is like trying to help government understand the challenges that we face and what we think needs to happen in order to improve the situation. So we approached a number of different government officials saying, look, you're going to need to take £1,000 off people's bills at a minimum in order for this to be manageable. How do we do that? We've got some very clever people within ScottishPower who sort of worked out a sort of mechanism which would be, I think we sort of called it was more of a deficit fund mechanism. We didn't, it's not up to us how government funds things. It's like, we'll give you an idea, then if you think it's a good idea, you figure out how to fund it. But it was just to sort of put down the scale of the problem, to put it down in numbers and say, this is what you need to pay, this is what it's going to cost, and this is a potential mechanism for paying it back. Our mechanism would have said customers paying it back over 50-20 years on their bills, relatively small amount each year, but then that's obviously quite a long-term period of debt. The government seemed to have taken it and decided that they're just going to take on the debt and repay it rather than putting it back onto customers' bills. that's their choice. But we just really hope that that can be in place by October. Now, there are a few elements of this as well. There's a lot of criticism about what the government have done. It's not targeted, it's not targeting the most vulnerable, but the only way to get this mechanism in place in time was just to make it a blanket scheme applying to everybody. And then there's the knock-on effect of, this wasn't what we were saying, but it was what we were hearing during the conversation, is if you apply it to everybody, then those people who may be going out for dinner, they may be having a day trip with their family, they may be going on holiday, they're still going to do that. But if they're also worrying about their energy bills, then the knock-on effect on your local restaurant, your local little shops, those are all going to be affected if you and I are not going there to buy our produce or to go to the restaurants to buy a meal. So there are different philosophies, different political philosophies about what is the right way to do things or not. But I think we're pleased that something has been done, and we just really hope that it's going to be implemented in time. For small businesses or all businesses, I don't think it is going to be on time. There's going to have to be some kind of period. October is going to be difficult, and then there's who knows what's going to happen after that, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a busy few days, I think, now.
No, I think so, Hazel. No, listen, thank you for that. That's really helpful, particularly for some of the callers who are dialing in from overseas. So thank you for that. Oh, actually, I'm seeing a question there from Lydia, who's wondering if ScottishPower would be able to. Oh, it's just disappeared. Sorry. Hold on 2 seconds. If you would be interested in collaborating with power supply companies in Zimbabwe, where there is serious power cuts and high demand. So there's a potential overseas collaboration.
Yeah. And you know, Lydia, what's interesting is we quite often have delegations from countries all over the world visiting our Whiteley wind farm. They come to Whiteley, it's just outside Glasgow, but then it gives us the opportunity to talk about all of the different elements of the project. So from the network infrastructure to the renewables, to the solar farm, the battery storage, the green hydrogen development. And it's a bit of a kind of education piece, and it's often worth approaching, I don't know whether it be SDI or Scottish Enterprise, but going through the Scottish Government, because we have very close contacts with them, and they often approach us to say, I have a delegation from, we had some recently, we've had Nigeria, we've had Denmark, we've had Iceland, all different countries coming to talk about what we do and learn about the regulatory processes in the UK and what we're doing.
Yeah, and certainly we can help as well, Hazel. Yeah. So Lydia, if they've got anything specific in mind, please do let us know. We can put you in touch directly with Hazel as well.
So, it's that collaboration piece, that knowledge sharing, information sharing, and the just transition angle of that as well. There's no point fixing climate change in the UK and not in the rest of the world. So it's
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to wrap things up, guys. I don't see any other questions. I really thank both our speakers this morning. Thanks to Hazel and to Bill for your time. Thanks for joining at such an early time in the morning, and that was very much to accommodate some of our overseas attendees as well. I just want to finish. I did mention at the beginning that we're collaborating with colleagues at the Egyptian British Chamber of Commerce on a trade mission for COP27, which is in Sharm el-Sheikh in November. The mission runs from the 8th to the 10th of November and includes a 2-day business forum in Sharm el-Sheikh. And there's lots of opportunities around the themes that are developing for COP27. We see there being lots of benefits if companies want to come with us to join colleagues from Egyptian British Chamber and all the other businesses that will be taking part from other parts of the world. Meeting leading international businesses. There'll be networking opportunities, there'll be site visits and a reception dinner, and access to the green zone at COP27 as well, which our colleagues have done really well to negotiate. There are several different packages it does cost to come, but if you are interested, please get in touch with me or my colleagues at the Chamber and we can give you more information. I know that we've got a few companies who've already signed up for that. And finally, just to say that we have one more webinar as part of our Renewables series for the month of September as part of the Climate Chamber City project. We're looking at the carbon neutral plan for the Glasgow City Innovation District, which is run by Roddy Yar at Strathclyde University. And Roddy's going to be joining us on the 27th of September at 8 AM for that webinar. Other chambers overseas will be taking control of content in the coming months. and we will have subjects such as green finance, agri-tech, and the built environment in the coming months as well. So as the Climate Chamber City momentum builds, we will have more content from our overseas partners who will take control of the content. So thanks again to Hazel and to Bill this morning for their excellent contributions. We're very pleased to be working with both the companies across the board, and really appreciate your input this morning and ongoing collaboration. And just a final reminder that we have that Glasgow Talks with Keith Anderson on Thursday, the 29th of September in central Glasgow. All the details are on the Chamber website. Thanks again for everybody attending this morning. Do keep in touch, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Bye for now.